Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is frequency. So as we become more sensitized to energy, we can actually broaden our perception, broaden our awareness, and also our ability to impact our circumstance and uh, other people, other sentient creatures that we interact with. And good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. It's great to have you here with us this morning. So I think it'll be fun to be looking at our own energy frequency, how we can curate it, and how we can expand it or elevate it. So before we get started, though, we're going to take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining stress, tension, negativity, fatigue. And now we'll press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion. I love this. It warms my hands up. And the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we are talking about frequency. And by the way, I don't know that if you comment on my pages, I don't know that the comments show up here in Restream. I don't know if anybody wants to test that from my personal pages, a page or my business page. But in the past, I haven't seen comments from those arenas. So if you want to check it out, that would be awesome. And otherwise, if I'm not responding to your comments, it's because I don't see them. So I'm not shunning anybody. I just don't see the comments. Anyway, so frequency, we've all felt times when we were high energy and low energy. And I would venture to say most of us have experienced being in a room and somebody walking in the room. And even though we didn't see or hear them, we can feel them. What we're talking about is energy. And I think that so many of us are growing in sensitivity and awareness of these energies that it warrants a conversation about how to curate them, how to manage our own energies and elevate them. So I was talking with a friend who was recounting a story about casting a spell, like literally casting a spell, like from a book with all kinds of tools, accoutrements, whatever. And so we were talking about light and dark magic. And really what is happening with magic is a deliberate manipulation of energies, right? Intentions, thoughts, um, but thoughts that are powered by maybe by belief, because the ritual of spell casting, of witchy like spell casting, is something that enhances the belief and the intent. It's not, by the way, something that I engage in. However, I want to talk about the levels of energy and how uh, we can use them to increase our vitality, to increase our the positivity in our lives. So if we think about the energy of fear, it's let's just imagine it's sort of a low frequency energy, right? Anger, a low frequency energy. Depression, a low frequency energy. And so many of us are looking to create transformation in the world. And yet, because we're sensitive to the need for that transformation, we can kind of easily get mowed down by the concerns, by the emotional toll of the concerns in the world. There's certainly a lot to be angry about, or depressed about, or hopeless about. And it's the very people who have the capability to make change who are typically feeling those oppressions, and their energy type oppressions. I mean, if you think about it just on a scale of having energy, not having energy, in terms of fatigue or being energized, I know that the energy conversation can sound pretty woo, but there's a reality to it that our culture has been conditioned to deny. And the truth is that if we check in, if it's feeling woo to you, if you check in, you'll be able to identify your experience of different people's energies and the energies of different situations. And I think it's important. So I think it's important to recognize that getting sucked into fear and anger and hostility and conflict is something that is a way that the system kind of dampens the light that would disrupt the system. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And I'm not saying to be doing the spiritual bypassing thing. I'm not talking about being in denial. I think we get to look squarely at what's going on and look at it with curiosity, to try to gain a deeper perspective on the bigger system at work, to be able to start to identify acupuncture points, so to speak, that will activate transformation. And we often get stuck in a problem-solving mentality. We often try to we see a problem and we go to solve the problem. And the thing is that the problem we're trying to solve is a symptom most often. And so what needs to happen in our desire to solve problems is, instead of trying to take immediate action to accomplish something in isolation, we look at the greater system and try to understand what the dynamics are that are generating symptoms that are represented by the kinds of problems that are showing up. Otherwise, if we're solving problems, we're playing whack-a-mole, really. So I'm just thinking of so many of the green type situations where people are trying to use the same structures, the same broken structures, but just plugging in different things that then become their own problem. But that might be a different conversation. Let's get back to how this problem solving thing works with frequency. So everything is energy. And of course, anything I say, I want you to check in. I don't want you to just believe what I'm saying because I'm saying it. You got to check in for yourself. But we do know, I think we know, that everything is energy. And by working on a lower plane where all these problems exist, we can't see the bigger picture. We can't identify the source. And so what's required is that we elevate our consciousness and that we elevate our frequency. And I'm kind of thinking of consciousness and frequency as well, they're so deeply interrelated that I don't know if they're separable. And like our heart rate, like our body temperature, there are fluctuations. And I don't think that there are probably quite few people on the planet who maintain a constant frequency of consciousness. But what we're being called to do, particularly those of us who might identify as light workers, is kind of a loaded term, but those of us who want to who are working for a better world, elevating our consciousness, elevating our awareness, elevating ourselves, because then we can have a broader view, if we're from higher up, so you can kind of have a broader perspective, that we have a responsibility, or we have an invitation to a responsibility to curate our energy. Because every time we fall into an automatic kind of behavior, an automatic rage, for example, or an automatic response of depression or self-loathing, and I'm saying these things are automatic. We've talked about how they're kind of spells that are cast, and I talk about spells just because people can relate, and besides, Halloween's coming up, right? But people can relate to the notion of a spell as something separate from themselves. As we elevate our own energy, we're becoming freer of those spells. As we become freer of those spells, we elevate our energy. And when we allow ourselves to get into a downward spiral, like a cycle of anger and upset, what we're doing is we're lowering our energy, we're dimming our light, we're shackling ourselves, we're hobbling ourselves in a way that disables us from being able to spread more of the energy that we're looking to spread. And so what do we do in those moments that isn't spiritual bypassing? What can we do to dissolve that energy block, or that thing that is shifting our frequency? What can we do? And the best thing that I've discovered in those moments, like when we recognize, oh my gosh, I'm on a tear here, is to go observer. Either go observer or get curious. And what I mean by that is to notice without judgment, because that judgment is going to like continue the spiral downward. But to notice what's going on and be curious, like, what's up with that? Where did it come from? The frequency of curiosity is way higher. You can feel it just thinking about it, way higher than rage or than depression. So when we think about, well, what's going on here, we can ask questions like, what would I have to be thinking to be feeling that way? Where are those thoughts coming from? Rather than getting caught in the story, that we can ramp up, we can accelerate the story, which, if you can visualize it, is almost like creating a whirlwind of energy, that a vortex that just pulls us down into away from the higher emanation of energy that we might have had previous to whatever triggered that behavior or that cascade of thought. It's so interesting when we experience a trauma, an upset, something that is triggering, we often don't recognize the actual trigger. And so what can happen is that we're stalwart and we're strong, and then something happens that is minor and we go off on a tirade. And that's because we've been a fuse that was just waiting to be lit, because we didn't recognize or deal with the original upset. And so it got channeled into other directions, and then it overtakes us. So I was able to, well, in a conversation with a client, they have a dog that they absolutely adore, and this dog was in trouble from having eaten something that was blocking it. And fortunately, they were able to discover this in time for the vets to intervene and do surgery, remove the obstruction, and save this dog's life. But meantime, it was over a course of days that they were separated from the dog and going through all the stress, and then the dog came out okay, thank God, and or thank whatever, and they were back at home and having to navigate all kinds of challenges with the mail system. And what happened was they just went off in a rage, and we talked about it, and they were very upset with themselves because they had fallen back into this ragey behavior over no provocation, because it was just stupid stuff. And we were able to identify that it wasn't over what it looked like. It wasn't over the stupid stuff. It was over the deep, deep sense of helplessness around their beloved dog, and the stress and fear and tension and all of that went on in going through that process with this beloved creature. And I think that that's an example for all of us, because when we don't deal with what's there, like we're trying to go through things and we'll be tough, we'll be strong, we'll weather it. When we do that, we're just subverting that energy. It's going to come out. It's going to come out somewhere. We're talking about frequency, right? So, you're creating a time bomb, so to speak, when we don't deal with our emotion. And I experienced that with another client as well, who had suffered a loss and hadn't really been able to process that loss. And their upset and despair and hopelessness and resignation was channeling itself outward to feeling that the world was going to hell in a handbasket, and relationships were unfulfilling, and what the essence was is that they hadn't really processed their grief over their loss. And it's interesting because you're taking these emotions, and again, it's frequency, right? It's pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down, compressing it, pressurizing it, until all of a sudden it comes out in an explosive and unpredictable way, rather than in a way that is more ecological, so to speak, right? And so learning how to modulate or recognize our emotions and be curious. Curiosity is magic in and of itself. To be curious without judgment about, well, wow, what's going on here? What would a person have to feel or think to be able to be acting in that way? It gives us a little distance. It's an instant elevation of energy and of frequency. And so the more we are able to relieve ourselves, dissolve the triggers in our lives, the more freedom we have, the more authenticity of expression we have, the higher our frequency can be. So another thing is that the more attuned to energy we are, the more attuned we become. It's like something that you practice, you get better at it, hopefully. But that holds true with energy as well, and with frequency. So releasing, dissolving our triggers, is kind of an instant. It's like all those triggers are kind of oppressions that are holding us down. And as we release them, we experience more freedom and our frequency can rise. At least that's try it on. See if that proves true for you. Anyway, that's it for today and for this week. And I want to thank you for being here with me and taking this time. So you guys, at the very last minute when I have to sign off, you put in all these wonderful comments. So I'm gonna take a minute to read it. Rosalind says, pranic healing principles. Energy is based on how fast the chakras are spinning. They can be depleted, overactive, or congested. Grief is often in the solar plexus, mid-belly. Sensitize the hands to feel what's there. Sweeping the area with movement of the hands. Visualize gray clouds being cleansed from the area. Enables the chakras to spin more freely. Rosalind, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Dido says, and hi, Dido, great to have you here. I love the ecological idea of letting our emotions and energies move. Regenerative energies. That's exactly what it is. I love that. I'm glad. I really appreciate your comments. And I'm going to request that you make them earlier so that we can riff with them more effectively. I love you so much and so appreciate all your insights. And I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Until next time, so much love to you.